So Megyn Kelly, who has always been a very, articulate supporter, defender of Israel and the US-Israel relationship and calling out the lies of Hamas and others, she recently spoke and invited onto her podcast Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's very hostile to Israel and indulges in all kinds of lies and nonsense about Israel's supposed stranglehold on America, which the Obama's nuclear Iran deal disproves in a moment, right? But it's basically, in my view, people say, oh, why are you so quick to talk about anti-Semitism? If you single out so many different countries, there are so many different countries that lobby America. If you single out one and say that has an incomparable amount of power and influence and stranglehold on our American system, and you engage in all kinds of lies, which I'm about to list to you, then you can't blame Jews for feeling a little bit suspect. And as Yehuda Teiselbaum said on Twitter, I'm going to read you what he says. Megyn Kelly has a choice right now. She has a choice. She can either keep her credibility, or she can follow the path of right-wing grifters who have made it their mission to bash Israel without logic or facts. And her interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene was full of blatantly false claims that collapse under, as I said, the slightest scrutiny. And I'll explain to you what it is. So you can watch the interview for yourself if you would like. But here are some of the things that were said. Number one, AIPAC controls Congress. I mean, how can you not? It's like when people say, I'm not against Jews. I'm just against Israel's right to exist. And it's like, so you mean to tell me out of all the countries in the world, some of which are either younger than Israel and had way more refugees and people killed and people raped and all of that, not that Israel was raping people in 1948, but had much more atrocities in their founding, think India and Pakistan, for example, and yet Israel is the only country in the world whose existence you question. And it just happens to be there's one country, one nation, and one people that for thousands of years people have said they don't have a right to exist, the Jews. And now today there's one country called Israel whose existence is questioned. And it just happens to be Israel, but that's nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Give me a break. And it's the same thing here with AIPAC controls Congress. That's what they've been saying the whole time. The Jews control everything, the banks, the this, the that. The media. Goodness me, how different things would be if we did control the media. But anyway, so she says AIPAC controls Congress. This is an old conspiracy theory repackaged as fact. AIPAC, as Yehuda writes, is in an American membership organization. It isn't registered under FARA because it is not a foreign agent. It's made up of US citizens who care about Israel. Their lobbying budget in 2024 was around $50 million. For comparison, Big Pharma spent over $350 million. Tech and telecom spent hundreds of millions more. If AIPAC controls Congress with $50 million, what does that mean about the industry spending 10 times that amount? Number two, congressional trips to Israel prove their influence. Members of Congress travel abroad constantly. They visit Ukraine, Taiwan, NATO countries, Japan, and South Korea. They're exposed to allies because America's global security depends on alliances. Israel is not unique here. The idea that a congressman is brainwashed by visiting a country is completely absurd. It's called diplomacy. Israel is making its case for why it is a strong ally. That's what every country does, and especially Israel should be doing it when it faces age-old hatred towards the nation-state of the Jews. I mean, it's like, it's the same stuff as when people are against Israel for defending itself. And they say, oh, you're outrageous what you're doing. Okay, so you'd rather Israel there is no lobbying that's done in favour of the US-Israel relationship. What you're basically saying is you'd just rather to let all the haters of Israel win, and for Israel to sit on its hands and commit suicide. Number three, then she says the US is broke, so why are we giving Israel $3.8 billion? That figure is less than 1/10 of 1% of the federal budget. It's insignificant compared to entitlement programs or interest on the debt. And that money is not a handout either. It's used to buy American weapons. Every dime cycles back into the US economy, supporting hundreds of thousands of defense jobs in states across the country. The US isn't losing money in that sense. But by the way, I'm all in favor of Israel becoming independent of aid, and I think they should shift away from that in time, even though the aid is really just funding the American military industrial complex. But yeah, Israel should try to slowly find ways to transition away from that. I think we can all agree on that. Number 4, Israel is wealthy. It doesn't need aid. Foreign aid is not charity. Israel's GDP doesn't matter here. US military aid is structured to guarantee Israel's qualitative military edge. America's law to ensure its ally isn't wiped off the map by larger hostile armies and terror groups. Israel spends more than almost any country in the world on defense, nearly 9% of GDP, because it has to. The US aid is about protecting a democratic ally and preserving regional stability, not paying Israel's bills. Number 5, other allies don't get special treatment. False. Egypt and Jordan receive billions every year in US aid. Taiwan gets special weapons deliveries. NATO members receive the ultimate form of aid, a US security guarantee that obligates American troops to fight and die for them. Israel has never asked America to put a single Marine at risk for them. Number 6, Israel is allowed to use aid differently. Yes, Israel is allowed to use a portion for domestic purchases, a condition written into the deal decades ago, because Israel's defense industry works hand in hand with America's. Think Iron Dome, missile defense, drone tech. That integration makes US weapons better and more effective globally. Number 7, the US gets nothing in return. Flat wrong, as Yehuda writes. Israel shares intelligence that saves American lives. It tests US weapons systems in real combat, and it provides America with a secure base of operations in the world's most volatile region. Number 8, Israel's aid is the real problem while America suffers at home. This is dishonest framing. $3.8 billion to Israel is a rounding error in the US budget. The real drivers of debt are entitlement spending, mismanaged domestic programs, and decades of fiscal irresponsibility. Blaming Israel for America's debt crisis is just scapegoating. None of Marjorie Taylor Greene's talking points are grounded in facts. They're designed to play into the same tired tropes that have always been used to suggest the Jews secretly manipulate politics for their own ends. Megyn Kelly knows better. She has the choice to use her brain and reject this nonsense, or go down the path of lazy populists who think bashing Israel is the ticket to relevance. And Yehuda wrote, I want to clarify a few points afterwards. Of course, you're allowed to talk to whoever you want to. It's a free country. Nobody disputes that. But if you have a show with an audience, you carry responsibility. You can't pretend your platform doesn't shape people's views. It does. And there's a difference between interviewing someone and hosting them like a friend. If your guest is known for making wild, false claims and they repeat those claims on your show without pushback, you're not just hearing them out, you're laundering their lies. And no, this isn't anti-free speech to call that out. If she can say whatever she wants, I can say whatever I want in response. That's how free speech actually works. Megyn keeps implying there's something nefarious about being invited to Israel. That's absurd. The reason people want her to visit is so she can see the truth for herself, especially since she constantly says the media can't be trusted. Israel wants people to see reality with their own eyes. The reason Jews are passionate about Israel isn't because of some shadowy lobby or global scheme. It's because we've been persecuted for 3,000 years and finally have a state where we can defend ourselves. Of course it matters to us that Israel is treated fairly. Notice, he says, nowhere in my post did I say America must fund Israel. Reasonable people can debate that. But debates have to be rooted in fact. What Marjorie Taylor Greene said was not. Much of it was blatantly false. And that leads to the bigger point. Why is Israel the obsession? Why is it always Israel, above all else, that gets singled out as the great evil of the world? That tells you everything about the real agenda. It's the same with Tucker, same with Candace. It's the same with the entire anti-Israel grift circuit. Disagree with Israeli policy all you want. That's fine. But to focus exclusively on Israel while lying about it is something I will call out every single time. Nowhere here did I attack Megyn personally. And the reason is simple. I think she knows better, but she's at a crossroads. The woke right, almost certainly fueled by foreign interest despite all their talk of America first, is trying to splinter the American right. If voices with influence will not stand up for the truth and instead cave to the latest fad for clicks and fame, then we're in deep trouble. This is the moment where true loyalties will show. Do they lie with truth or with money and attention? We will soon find out. And Yehuda absolutely hits all the right points there. But, for me, the key thing is this. This actually transcends security interests and, do we want to be aligned with Israel politically and lobbying and all this? This comes actually down to something even deeper. America wants to abandon Israel. They might even conclude it's not in their interest to be supporting Israel. I don't think they're right, but maybe that's a view they want to take. At a cosmic level, though, regardless of whether you believe that there's interest in the America-Israel relationship, at a cosmic level, not standing with Israel, not being an agent that helps Israel in their time of need, that's your loss. That's America's loss in the end. As much as it may seem like the Jewish people are somewhat vulnerable, we've been seemingly vulnerable for 3,000 years. And we've seen off so many nations and empires, 100 times our size, many of whom have willed our destruction. If you don't see the hand of God in the Jewish people's history, in the Jewish people's story, in Israel's story, in Israel's present, there's a bit of a willful blindness there. So one way or another, God will figure it out for his people, because that's what he always does. There was a famous conversation between Mordecai and Esther in the book of Esther. And Esther has a chance to confront the king and tell him that Haman, his second-in-command prime minister, is trying to wipe out the Jews and to lobby for the Jews. And Mordecai, who's trying to give her a pep talk to say, you have to do this. You have to go into the king's chambers, even though there's a chance that you could get in trouble because you're not meant to go into the king's inner chambers unless you're invited. Very risky. But he says to her, do it. And if you don't do it, he says, well, then God will find another way. But you and your name will be forgotten. A bit of an interesting pep talk. Surely it'd be a better thing to say, if you don't do this, well, then the Jewish people are going to be destroyed. No. The Jewish people will survive because God assured it. God promised it. It's essential. Their divine mission to bring the Torah to the world is essential. To be a light to the nations, it's the purpose of the world. So that's not gonna be compromised. The question is, what role do you want to play in that? Do you, Esther, want to be the agent that brings the salvation? If not, God will find another way. And a similar kind of message can be said to America. Do they wish to abandon Israel? Or do they want to come to Israel's aid? Israel's going to be okay either way in the end. The question is, what will be America's story in this unfolding drama? So that is what I would say to this. And I think there's a big question mark over what's actually going to happen. What do you think is going to happen on the right? Let me know your thoughts. Before we wrap up, I want to share something important with you. The entire anti-Israel movement is built on one central accusation, that in 1948, Israel stole the land, and ever since Palestinians have simply been resisting. But what if everything we've been told about this story is untrue? What if the real history of 1948 shows not Arabs being forced out, but Jews, while seeking peace, having to fight for their survival against a genocidal enemy that willed its destruction long before Israel's re-establishment? Watch the trailer for our new, groundbreaking and essential documentary entitled What Really Happened in 1948. And if you want to see the full film, just click the link in the video description. In 1948, the world witnessed the rebirth of the Jewish state, the State of Israel. A moment celebrated as a miracle of survival and self-determination after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. Yet for decades, this event has been twisted into a narrative of theft and catastrophe, with the so-called Nakba portrayed as Israel's original sin, where Jews allegedly stole Arab land and displaced innocents in a premeditated act of ethnic cleansing. But what if this story is fundamentally inverted? What if the cause and effect are the other way around? Not Israel aggressively seizing territory and Arabs responding in self-defense, but Arabs, driven by deep-seated hatred, rejecting the Jews' legal and historical rights to live in their ancestral homeland and waging a genocidal war long before Israel's re-establishment. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the unvarnished truth about 1948, the centuries of pogroms and anti-Semitic violence that set the stage, the Arab leaders' explicit calls for extermination, and the defensive war Israel fought to secure its existence. We'll challenge the pervasive lies head-on, showing how Arab rejection of peace wasn't about creating a Palestinian state, but about denying Jews the right to live at all. From the Nazi-allied leader of the Arabs in Palestine, the Mufti al-Husseini, to the forgotten occupations by Jordan and Egypt, when no Palestinian state was even considered, this is the story of a conflict rooted not in displacement, but in whether the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. Join us as we debunk the myths with facts, confront the historical record fairly but firmly, and reveal why 1948 was not an act of aggression, but a righteous response to annihilation. This is what really happened in 1948. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.